Today's Ace Monday Mastery is all about self-awareness. Now, how well do you really know yourself? Let me give you a preview. You have to know yourself to lead yourself. We're talking about it today. Welcome to Ace Monday Mastery. Got a story to tell. Let me break it down. I hired in with bright eyes, but this team was disjointed. My project in full effect. This is my appointment. The point man, my moment to show and prove their choice was the best it could be. No matter who the other choice was. Fast forward, they all saw it. I blew it out the water. We got paid. Recall, this team had a disorder. Shade was on the border and moved from the epitome of team synergy. Now they talking about getting rid of me. What, are you kidding me? Maybe it's the kid in me. Mom's daily mystery, trying to configure what would dinner be. Now I'm a grown man, take my homegrown stance. With steel in my back, I could steal out the back. Take a knapsack, some tax, a scanner, and a fax. But if security steal me, I'ma have to steal them back. Alternative facts, pain, I want them to hurt well. I'm an ace, and they rather low-performing personnel. Why Monday and why mastery? It ain't hard to tell. By now, you know ACE stands for attitude, competence, and evidence. So when we come to our work week on Monday morning, you have to have a plan. You have to know where you want to end. I always say start with the end in mind. So that starts with the right attitude. But you also, in making that plan, have to be able to align the things you have to do with the amount of time that you have throughout the week. That's the competence part. And if you do that effectively, by the end of the week, you'll be able to have the evidence that you have aced your work week. I could play a role and won't have to audition. Your position's a blip on the radar of my vision. This starts my decision. I wonder why I'm tripping. Is this a firing or firing up of my ignition? But it all starts on Monday. And it all starts with you right now. A stands for attitude. C is competence and E is evidence. You put it together, you become an ace in whatever work or industry you find yourself doing. I'm Jabin Ferrer, Chief Strategist and founder of Ace Work Life. Welcome to another Monday Mastery. Let's get right into it. You know, it's the 25th, so we got to get into Proverbs 25. It's the wisdom book, so we got to start our week right. Proverbs 25:2 says, "It is the glory of God to conceal things, but the glory of kings to search things out." Whew, another version here. It is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the glory of kings to search out a matter. I like that first one, to conceal things. So for me, when I read this passage, I think about myself, but also think about my kids. It's amazing how many things that you see your kids do that you get upset with them, you get frustrated with them, and then if you sit back, you're like, God is saying the same thing to me. Okay, so he uses that relationship. How many of us want things just handed to us? Don't we want just things to be handed to us? Like we expect certain things to come, we expect to receive, we expect. But the passage in Proverbs says, "It is the glory of God to conceal things." The glory meaning if I just give you everything, it's not as beneficial, it's not as honoring, and I don't get to celebrate as much as if I conceal something and then you search it out. And for us as little children, as God's children, or as grown people, we want to be able to search things out. And when you seek and you find, it's something exciting about the process at the end of it. Now you going through something difficult, you're looking for finances, you're looking for answers, solutions in your work. That's a very hard place. It's a hard place to be in. But I know you have stories and testimonies of coming out on the other side and feeling such a level of gratitude and reward that you didn't even imagine. And it wouldn't be the same if something was just handed to you. I know for me, based on the way I grew up and not having a lot, not being able to do a lot of things that I saw other people doing, I had a desire to have kids that my kids won't go through that. How many of y'all can relate? I don't want my kids to have to go through what I went through and lack and all those things. But now there's the other side of it, because I don't want my kids to be spoiled brats either. I don't want them to just get everything handed to them. I want them to have an appreciation for the process. And so sometimes I have to intentionally put constraints around when they can do certain things, what they can buy, where they can go, because I want them to kind of work through and get a level of grit that is built up by not having something and by searching something out, looking for another way. If you don't have the money to do something, figure out another way to do it. And that's where creativity comes in. So it's the glory of God to conceal a matter. It's the glory of kings to search out a matter or to search things out. And so as I transition to the focus of the day with things, when we say search things out, I'm going to group things into two categories. Okay. Two categories. I'm going to group things into external and internal. And so external, we're talking about self-awareness today. External things that we might search out or need to search out, we typically do search out, are relationships. So it could be intimate relationships, it could be friendships. We search out careers, we search out different jobs, we search out education. What do I want to do with my life? What do I need to learn? So it's easy to search external things out. And we typically do that. Everything around us in the world is trying to get our attention. Look here, spend your time here, scroll here, do this, buy that. And so it's easy. The external is easy. Everything is pulling our attention. So we naturally look there. Where I'm going to focus today when we talk about searching things out is internal. So I'm talking about self awareness. Now, in an earlier broadcast, if you go back, I talked about strength finders and finding your superpower. So hopefully you listened to that. If you didn't, then go back to the Ace Monday Mastery called Your Brand. And there was also an activation where I challenge you to go and find one superpower and do something to develop it. Internal self-awareness, though, is more than just your strengths or your gifts. It's even more than just, finding weaknesses. So we're going to go through three areas. And when I say self-awareness, I'm going to title this and I'm going to move as if this is self-unawareness and that you don't have an area or you have blind spots in these particular areas. So let's dive into them for a minute. Self-unawareness, number one, performance. People can have blind spots regarding their actual competence performance levels, leading to overestimation or underestimation of their abilities. So it doesn't matter what role you find yourself in. It doesn't matter what status. You could be a business owner and you can still underestimate your abilities or overestimate your abilities. You can be an employee. You can be the lowest man on the totem pole. It doesn't matter. I think we all have a level of confidence or competence that don't always align. So if you go into something and you're overconfident, well, you may have blind spots and you may need to slow down and kind of survey the land, take a look around you. If you go into something underconfident, you might have to do some self-talk. You might have to do some meditation or get yourself going, like before a game or something, get ready to go out and do what you can do. So that performance, either overestimation or underestimation, can directly impact the rewards that you receive, the spoils from your work, performance appraisals, increase, etc. So take an inventory and think about what blind spots you might have related to performance. Number two, self-unawareness is emotional intelligence. This is a big area. So I'm only going to be able to just graze the surface on this one. Emotional intelligence. People often overlook how their emotions affect their reactions, decisions, and interactions at work. So you've heard the phrase, bring your whole self to work. There's a lot of conversations and talk about being able to bring your whole self to work. And whereas it's usually talked about in a good thing, sometimes you can bring your whole self to work with some stuff that should be left home. So as an example, if you are going through some difficult things at home in your relationship with your kids, let's say, and this is some real time stuff, because last night I had some issues. Over the weekend, I had some issues. There's always going to be issues. Let's say I brought those issues to this broadcast right now, and I'm talking to you, and I'm just, yeah, so emotional intelligence, and I'm thinking about the weight that I had. I'm not going to be as effective and you're not going to be as receptive to what it is that I'm trying to communicate. So sometimes bringing your whole self to work doesn't mean bring all your issues, bring your whole slate of issues and things that you're going through in life. That's not what it means. So you have to understand, what am I bringing to work? What's still on my mind when I'm starting to meet with my team, with my employees? And how's that impacting when I'm running into a challenge? because you could be easily triggered by something that happened at home because you don't check yourself at the door. And so sometimes you need to just understand, how am I showing up? What am I bringing here? What is it producing? And what is it creating in the team? How is it impacting the team? Is it positive or is it negative? Finally, last self-unawareness point, number 3, feedback reception. Some people are unaware of how they receive or respond to feedback, which might obstruct their learning and improvement. Are you open to feedback? I know personally in the past, I have not been open to feedback. And if I'm being honest, depending on who it is, what they're saying, what I went through, it's hard to receive feedback. So I'll be the first one to tell you. I had a conversation with my daughter over this last weekend, one of them, one of the 4. And she was explaining to me the process that she goes through in related to a certain issue. And I'm listening to him like, wow, she really goes through the same thing that I go through. I've effectively transferred my mind and process in this young lady. The challenge is, because she thinks like I do, sometimes when I'm giving her feedback or telling her, you should have done this, you should have done that, she's hearing that correction is, I did something wrong, or even it can go a little bit deeper as, I'm not good enough, I can't do the task, and that type of thinking. And that's not necessarily what it was. So we had to talk about it and break it down. Like, that's not what daddy's communicating to you. What I'm communicating to you is, I wish you would add this in along with your process. Likewise, at work, if you thought through a process, you thought through something that you're trying to achieve, and you know you laid it out, like this is airtight. And then you go to share it with your team, go to share it with a manager, you go share it with a leader, and they start poking holes in it. And then you feel sometimes personally attacked, like my work isn't good enough. Like, do you know how much effort that I put into this presentation? Do you know how much time it took? I thought through all the risk and everything. How open are you to feedback, to not take things like that personal, because it could impact your performance, it could impact your relationships and your effectiveness at work. So we all want to be effective. So ACE activation for this week, what I want you to do is, I want you to think about those 3 areas. So recapping: performance, emotional intelligence, feedback reception. Think about those 3 areas, and I'll give you 2 options on activation. Definitely do this first one. This is a light reflection. I want you to choose one area and ask yourself, how am I doing? How am I doing? Like, do an honest self-assessment on how am I doing. Don't trick yourself and say, oh, I'm doing fantastic. Like, ask yourself some hard questions. Try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. See how you're doing. If you're doing great, wonderful. How can I go from good to great? If you're not doing so great, how can I go from wherever you believe you are to being good? And then trend up. The goal is always to go one step beyond where you find yourself. Okay. Number 2, for those of you that want to go deeper, look into the mirror, but then be open to feedback. Choose one area, same area preferably, and ask a coworker, ask a boss, ask a manager, ask a team member, how am I doing? Now, if you chose feedback reception as the area that you want to dig into and self-reflect on, this will be a tall tale sign of whether or not you're receiving feedback. If somebody says, hey, honestly, you're a little bit angry when we sit down and we talk about planning, you kind of get a little hostile. What do you mean I get hostile? That's kind of what I mean, that response right there. So ask somebody, do a deep reflection. I heard something recently where it was a Harvard Business Review, and they were talking about the power of self-awareness. And did you know that with this activation, this is going to help you, because with just 15 minutes a day of reflection, you can yield a 23% increase in your performance. This is identifying and checking your blind spots and seeing, okay, how can I fill those blind spots? How can I account for them? So I encourage you to do that. That's the ACE activation for the day. So again, let me end with this point. Know yourself to lead yourself. Many of us are leaders in various ways: our work life, our life work at home, outside of our regular 9 to 5s or the businesses that we might be running. And we want people to follow us, and people are following us. But if you know yourself and you can lead yourself through these areas, it makes your leadership that much more attractive. It makes more people want to follow you, and it increases your influence. So I encourage you to do this. This isn't just an activity to just check a box. This is to make you a more effective leader. This is for you to be able to ace your work and everything that you're doing. And again, if you enjoy this content, you're getting some from it, like, comment, share with other aces so that everyone can master their work in the art of living. I'm Jabin Ferrer. I'll see you next time.